Hey, this is Malika of Evanston Live TV, and I have with me today somebody that's going to give us some real history as to what happened to the Fifth Ward School. Like, what happened? I think people need to really feel a personal story of someone who's been here for generations. His mother was impacted, he was impacted. Um, I just really think it's important because, believe it or not, there's still some people pushing back to a school being returned back to the Fifth Ward. It is a harm that needs repair. And people are still pushing back, believe it or not. So please welcome back to Evanston Live TV. We have William Eason. Welcome back, William.
Hey, how's it going, Malika?
Good, good. So you out there and you left Evanston. Your family's been here for generations, so you
Correct.
moved out to Texas.
Right. Yeah.
How's the weather
That's
out there?
well, today it's not doing too well. It's overcast and cloudy, and yeah, it's not doing too good today. But otherwise, it's about 80.
Oh, rub it in. Okay. All right. So, William, I brought you on because I heard the stories of your mom
Right.
fighting for a school, fighting to do a lot of repair that was done wrong to the Black community in Evanston, and she
Right.
was definitely a leader. And what I loved about on the 14th when they announced the new school for the Fifth Ward is all of them, the board, Superintendent Devon Horton, President Anya Tanyavudi, Sarita, Henry Wilkins, all of them paid homage to those before them who were, you know, kicking down doors, knocking on doors, doing their
Right.
best to move the needle. And so they passed the baton. And that's how change happens. So take us back to, what happened with your mom. And then I also want to say, Henry definitely kept the conversation going throughout the community. Anya and Dr. Horton, D65, the board, they definitely had the vision and they were determined to make it happen during their time period serving. Um, but your mom was one of those people that's just wow. And then you had actually created a play in collaboration with Mudlark Theater to educate the Evanston residents as to what happened. So, but let's start with your mom, Norma, because I'm always fascinated with the story, and I think more people need to hear about it.
Well, my mother was on the school board back then, and times were a little bit different. So she was an entrepreneur. She was a college. She was a high school graduate. She graduated near the top of her class from New Trier High School. She married my father, who didn't have a high school diploma, but he was a hard worker. And this is the type of households that were there. She had a lot of vision and ingenuity. She actually had a grocery store called the Expedient Ingredient on Sherman, right across the street from Nichols School, back when I was in junior high. You know, so a Black woman owning her own store back then, it was kind of a big deal. But that's the type of person she was. But at the time, she was on the school board, and she was having a lot of pushback, especially from the Black community. And you got to understand something. Evanston is always they are progressive, but sometimes they jump in to the deep end. They wanted to be the first to desegregate. So the foster school idea it started off okay, but what ended up happening was they put the best school in the Fifth Ward, and so they started busing our kids out and busing white kids in. And then they graduated our kids out. Then the Black folk were pretty much given a lottery, put in a lottery situation, and our families were broken up. I mean, people were feuding like the Hatfields and McCoys, and even siblings weren't allowed to go. Like one could go to foster and the other one was bused to a school in the second ward or the ninth ward or whatever. So, so what ended up happening when they finally built that new school, King Lab, and they were closing foster, it was a big what to do. Well, before that, before that, when they started to, when they put the plan together to graduate kids out, the initial plan. Because if it just kept the Black kids staying there, that might have been okay. But it was busting the white kids in, taking the Black kids out and dispersing them. So that we wanted to be first in desegregation, but the way we went about doing it wasn't the world's greatest. And it got into a big thing. It was a big meeting at Foster Center. I was a little kid. It was the early 70s, late 80s, early 70s. Early 70s. Yeah, because I was about 4 or 5. And big meeting at Foster Center. My mother was on the school board. And, you know, she got a lot of pushback because she had a lot of white folks that supported her back then. And, you know, during that time, you know, it wasn't popular. And also, since she didn't have a master's degree and things of that nature, even though my mother was a member of Mensa, it was by choice. She wanted to raise 7 kids. She wanted to be a housewife. It was a choice that she made. That was the way the women were brought up in her family at the time. But one of the prominent Black men in the community slapped the hell out of my mother and told her to go sit down. It turned into a big family rivalry between this family and my grandfather and the rest of that. But I was there when it happened. So
wait, a man slapped your mother at a school board meeting.
Correct.
What exactly was said?
I remember at the time I'm 4 or 5, but I know, you know, Norma had a gift of saying, she was very practical. She didn't beat around the bush. It was really kind of straightforward. 2 + 2 = 4. You didn't have to go utilize new math and the rest of that with her. And I don't know exactly what was said, but the end result that she was slapped. Turned into a big deal personally between families and stuff like that. You know, Evanston, I told you, the Hatfields and McCoys. And you know, and what she did was she said, I'm not dealing with District 65 anymore. She joined with Bethlehem Lutheran Church and started Bethlehem Lutheran School, and all of us went there. She met all of her kids, ended up going to Bethlehem Lutheran until it closed. And I went there for 1st, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th and 7th grade, because they closed after my 7th grade year. And I was supposed to go to Nichols, and my mother was like, you're not going to Nichols. And so I was like 11 years old, and I ended up starting 9th grade at the high school because she wouldn't let me go to a District 65 school. She was like, you're smart enough. We're not worried about it. Socially, it was a problem. And I ended up going to high school at Evanston way early. And, you know, I made it through. I did what I had to do to get out. And, you know, looking back, I think I was kind of her thumb in the eye of District 65, because I remember when we were having those meetings, and I think Miss Martin was in there. I know Miss Lindsay, Eddie Stevens, and they were pulling for me. I mean, they literally, when I messed up in high school, they made sure they were like, look, dude, your mom broke her neck to get you up in here. You better act like you got some sense, you know? So I ended up doing the right thing and getting out of there. But yeah, that's pretty much what happened back then. But what has happened as a result since then, and Henry came right on time, because after the referendum vote, I think it was 2012, and they gave, you know, it's 9 Evanston wards, and the 5th ward wants a school. So the other 8 wards have a say in what we wanted and what they wanted at the time. I wasn't living over there then, but most of my family is still over there. So, you know, there's kind of this vested interest by proxy, so to speak. And they, you know, it would be like people that relocated to Evanston, because the school system's great, you know. People that relocated here, like if they you know, they look down on the black folks in the 5th ward, especially other black folks, and they're like, oh, if you bring up the 5th ward school, it was a problem. They're like, oh, that happened years ago, get over it. but you got to understand something. There's a reason why people are talking about property values are about to go up over there in the Fifth Ward with just the announcement of this school. A school adds value to the community. Plus, it's the connective tissue to the youth growing up together, you know? So, and then at that time, Evanston had a bunch of Black-owned business. We were businesses. We were pretty self-sufficient in the Fifth Ward. So you had a bunch of Black-owned businesses, and that was the first domino to fall that allowed for us to have to migrate out of the Fifth Ward to start spending money elsewhere, and we started taking our money out of the Fifth Ward and things of that nature. There's a lot of different problems that we have, but this was a major blow to the community as a whole. And so a couple things happened with Henry when Henry showed up. First of all, Henry isn't from Evanston. So he's a transplant. That's what we call y'all. So when
You know, I really don't understand that. It's like, hey,
yeah,
I mean, I moved here in '84, and people still
you're a transplant.
don't think that
So
I can say that I'm, you know, I've lived here long enough to serve Evanston, or I love Evanston. I
I
mean,
know, I know. It's so mental. I'm in Texas and I'm up here talking about Evanston. So trust me, I get it. It's mental. So, but by Henry not being here, like when he would say, "Hey, they need a school in the Fifth Ward," and people would say, "Oh, that's just an excuse they've been saying for years." He's like, "I just moved here," and they like, "Oh, you did," you know. So he had that dynamic, and he had the idea of not taking it to referendum, but the game plan to put it in the hands of 7 school board members, not thousands of Evanston voters, you
Hmm.
know. And then you just need 4 out of 7. Math,
Hmm.
you know, a referendum, you don't know who's gonna show up, you don't know what's going, might be a
Right.
pandemic, who knows, you know what I'm saying? But you can
Hmm.
always do that 4 out of 7. You can do that on a Zoom call. So we can always make sure, but then what ended up happening was the political winds blew in his favor as well, because some people that got on the board, you know, when you did that, the forum, and it was for the Fifth Ward school, and candidates that became an
Yeah, that was
election
a
agenda,
that
and it
was a
was an
hot
item,
topic.
right?
That was a hot topic.
So
During those forums, you really got to see the candidates, and I love that the forum was happening on Evanston Live TV, because when the Fifth Ward school situation came up, that's when people really started deciding who they were for.
right. Yeah, it was a litmus test, especially
Mhm.
for the Black folk over there. Like old school Black folk, that's kind of, and I don't speak for all of them, trust me, but I know a majority of them. And
Mhm.
yeah, that was a hot topic, a hot button issue. And um, it started, so when the political winds swung kind of in Henry's favor, because when we first started this at the Lutheran Church on South Boulevard, this was several years ago, 4 years ago, about that. Henry, we were doing a workshop on canvassing, and we had 9 people, we ended up with, it started with 9 people or something like that. And we went down to the farmer's market and we collected signatures for a Fifth Ward STEM school. Um, and, you know, Henry was, you know, we didn't know COVID was coming, the elections, all the rest of that. He was looking at a 7 to 10 year plan. But it was this plan, this is the plan. And this just goes to show you when divine intervention steps in on something, because once he got the wheels turning, he went to the Black community. He went to a lot of folks that laughed at him. Like a lot of people that are from here were like, "You're not from here." And the people that aren't from here, that I'm in Texas talking about from here. Anyway. But the folk that moved to Evanston, you know, he had more of an affinity with, and he actually got them to move the old heads in the direction because they all they could think about, they got stuck in this. We got to go to a vote, and then that whole them other people, them other wards, they ain't gonna vote for it. And so once people started to get educated, that's what the play was about. We got together, and before the play, you did interviews, and we had forums, and we educated the PTA, all the PTAs in Evanston, in District 65, every school. Henry set up a meeting with all of them. All of them saw the play. We did a before and after forum with all of those PTA members. And once they were educated on the topic, they understood that the right thing to do, it wasn't even a black and white issue. Color didn't even matter. It was like, oh, you don't just bust people's kids everywhere and then tell them, it's okay,
Right.
get over it, So
Right.
once that started to take root, the momentum, the election, it was just like a perfect storm. Everything, Bobby Burns coming in, because Bobby and me and Bobby have butted heads in the past, but Bobby is doggedly pro Fifth Ward in a way that, I'm just glad he's over there, because he's hawkish on what needs to be done, bringing in jobs and school, getting that school back and some other stuff over there, So just watching this whole process unfold, I've been extremely proud of individuals, the groups. You got to remember, Mike Miro and Andrew Billiter from Mudlark, they tackled some really tough racially sensitive issues in Evanston in conjunction with the Art of Evolution Theater. And it could have blew up in their face. And, it didn't. People were open and receptive. That's what I'm saying. You can actually move the needle in Evanston if people have the proper information. And that's why I'm a strong advocate of the arts. The arts stir the emotions that are needed sometimes for people to see things in the proper perspective.
Yeah, that play woke a lot of people up. And I just remember covering all of that and doing the interviews. So many people did not know what had happened. And I know I learned a lot more. Because there are prominent Black leaders still here in Evanston who played a hand
Yeah,
in why
they
we
were,
don't have a fifth ward school. We're
you
not
know
going to call
what?
them out,
No, no,
but
the thing
yeah.
is, you know, at first I was a little bitter because I saw some folks on social media, praise dancing and everything. And I know they were an obstacle at one point in time. I know
Mm.
personally, I know. So it's I'm not that petty to say, you know what, shame on you type of thing. But I'm just glad that people like Henry, myself, Bobby, you, Mike Miro, Dino Robinson is a Evanston saint. I don't care what anybody says. Dino is a wealth of knowledge and information, and if for you as a Black person in Evanston don't know Dino and haven't been over there to support what he's doing, you have a problem. So I'm dead serious. Dino is all praise due, straight up. He's that important to almost every movement that's been going on, be it the reparations movement, the red light.
We won't talk. We won't talk about
Yeah,
reparations,
yeah.
but I
I'm
do
just
have a great
saying.
deal of respect for
No, that's what
Dino.
I'm
But
saying. But his whole I'm just saying, the information, the foundation for what these movements have been based on, he is the foundation. His research has been the foundation. That's all I'm
his
saying.
research, he is a research king.
Yeah, he's phenomenal. He's
Hmm.
phenomenal. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah. And and I often wonder if in everyone's legacy, there's things that any person might not be proud of for their part in something, especially their part in bringing down a community, pretty much having a negative impact on a community. And they, and probably now just want to, make up for it, but they don't want a light shined on it. But I do think that at some point, I don't know if Dino will be the one, um, to really tell the truth, like who the players in it
Not
who played
yet.
a hand in it, who played a hand in there not being a fifth ward school, but they're celebrating now. I
Yeah.
yeah,
Don't do that
I
yet. No. Then wait. No, don't do that. I
yeah,
mean,
there has to
it's
be.
a Evanston. I'm gonna tell you something. Evanston does big things. They don't always do them right, but they do big
Mhm.
things. If you want to get something done, Evanston is the place. My mother told me that when I was a kid. She was like, "You are one of the most fortunate people ever. You know, you don't even understand the type of education that you're getting, both socially and academically here growing up in Evanston." And I didn't understand it until I was well into into adulthood. You know, the advantages that Evanston gives you. It's a beautiful thing. I'm not, and you know what? It's a celebratory moment for everyone, even if you were involved, be it negatively or positively. To know that the right thing or wrong has been righted, everybody deserves that.
Everybody should be celebrating, and I see them celebrating. Evanston is one of the best places. You know, I've lived in other states, and I have come to appreciate Evanston so much as an adult. As a teen, of course, yeah, we didn't recognize what we had
Oh,
living here.
because Chicago's
Yeah.
right across the street.
Right,
Right.
right. But as an adult, I'm like, this is the best. It's the right speed. It is the best. I mean, we do have our issues, our concerns, but one thing about Evanston is passing that baton, uh, and keeping things moving, and that's how you move the needle.
Right.
And you always pay respect to those before you. Always pay respect to those before you, mistakes
Yeah.
and all.
Yeah. But
Um,
we're good. I appreciate what's been. I'm like I that morning after the vote, like that night, my phone just blew up. And you know, I haven't really been talking to people. And no lie, I had like 20 phone calls, 25 texts, phone calls, inboxes. You watching the meeting? Henry just said your name. And I'm like, what? You know, I'm not paying attention. I'm like, what Henry say? No.
Yeah, he gave a
So
very moving speech at that
yeah,
meeting. Very, very moving speech. Um, I mean, he said thank you to everyone that had any part in his part in keeping
right.
this conversation going. And he's going to have, you know, his whole new campus built. And
But
I
it
was
just
surprised when he said my name. I was like, oh,
but it's
I mean,
just
it was a beautiful night.
it's just starting, you know, it's
Mm,
just starting. Cause you know, I was talking to, and I don't quote me on these numbers, but I
mm,
was talking to somebody at the city of Evanston about the stats of the fifth ward, and they said that 54% of the homes, home homes are African American still, not home ownership. It's considerably less, but there's
mm.
still like there's a lot of people that are saying, I've been following on social media, oh, it's too late, we gone, and they're doing it because there's white people over there. There's still black folk over there. There's still, and you know what? Right now, if there isn't has never been a time for black folks to come together in the fifth ward, it's now. Because now here come the
Mm.
robber barons, because that the property values that already, it isn't going to be like they can pick it up on the cheap. So like it was, now it's not going to be like that anymore, you know. And I wish there were some people that were still around, including my mother, to see this. But I know, like I sent you and Henry and folks, I'd let y'all know. I said my Norma Eason is smiling down on y'all today. Because she appreciates, I know she appreciates this. Yep.
Yes, yes. I bet you many of them are smiling like, yes, it's
Yeah.
becoming a reality. That was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. I mean, your mom was physically assaulted at a
Right.
meeting because she wanted justice.
Right.
She wanted things to be right for the Black community. So people have gone through some madness to get it to this point. And yeah, I mean, what's the saying? I gave my flowers to Henry. Anya, Sarita, to everyone, and
Right.
definitely to the ancestors. And I can't stand saying that the ancestors because a lot of them are
They
still
still
here.
here. Right. It's
They're
just,
still here.
yeah.
But yeah,
No,
and then you, Art of Evolution, you writing that play with Mike Miro and Andrew, that woke a lot of people up about foster school.
yeah.
I think that woke majority of Evanston up
It
about
got
what
the
really
it
happened.
got the conversation going, and people couldn't look at the
Mm,
Fifth Ward and be like, oh, because if you said something about the school, there's like, oh, you playing the victim. Well, I mean, sometimes you are. I mean, sometimes some stuff happens where, you can't just
survivors,
say,
not
right,
victims.
right. So now we're on the other
Mm,
side of it. Don't tell me my pain and my trauma ain't real.
right.
Don't do
Don't
that.
devalue my
I'm
reality.
looking at him. All right, bye.
All right. Bye, William. All right. So this is Malika, Evanston Live TV. That was William Eason. No longer an Evanstonian, but Evanston is in his heart and soul forever. And the man comes with a lot of history and a lot of stories. So, we'll be sure to have him back again. But you all stay tuned, stay engaged right here at Evanston Live TV. Ask questions. Get answers to your questions about what is going on in your city of Evanston. We got some amazing things, amazing people, and we also got some things that need some changing. And we see with the new Fifth Ward School, you just pass the baton. You keep pouring out the energy, and then before you know it, the needle starts moving, and then you have some change. So you all please stay tuned, stay engaged. We'll have some more awesome people doing awesome things here in Evanston.